Well, we are trying to see if we can't find a terrapin once again, but I suppose we should say hello first. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our sunset safari. We had a few technical issues, so we are now back with you guys, and hopefully everything will be sorted for the rest of our afternoon out here. It is a beautiful afternoon, so we hopefully are going to have a wonderful time as we explore the northeastern corner of South Africa. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Sebastian, and as I was saying, we are going to be exploring, and it is live, which means that we would love to hear from all of you. So hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or on the YouTube chat if you want to get hold of us. I did say it was a warm, hot day. It almost feels as though it's summer, so we came down towards Treehouse Dam to see if there wasn't anything lurking. And there is a hippo, if you can believe it, somewhere in this dam, but unfortunately it seems to be very shy. There its nostrils are. There you can see just the little nose sticking out. So a very shy hippo. It's getting a breath and under it goes again. It doesn't want anything to do with us at this stage, so it's being a little bit of a terror when it comes to that. Also, the terrapins seem to be giving Seb a hard time. I can actually see one floating off in the distance there, Seb, in the dark green part of the reflection. You'll see that there is a head just on the left side. There it is. So there's some terrapins that have the best possible place today. They're enjoying a bit of sunshine and the pool, basically, and I think they have definitely got it right this afternoon. Now I'm going to explore all of the water holes because it is a warm afternoon, but Dr. Tara is back in a familiar territory, and she's decided that she's going to teach us all the wonderful and weird things that we have out here from the confines of the tent.
Yeah, back in the office. So yes, welcome. My name is Tara, and joining me on camera this afternoon is Senzo. And James, I promise I won't break anything. Well, I'll try not to break anything. So I'm very excited to be in the tent, and I'm calling it the Aladdin's Cave. It is amazing, so we'll have a look in there shortly. But for those of you who weren't on safari, we picked this up this morning. This was from a lappet-faced vulture. Absolutely fantastic. Look at the size of it. So we did go and have a look at the carcass, and we thought we'd go and see what the vultures were doing. And the lappet-faced vulture was sat there on the tree, and he toileted, which tends to suggest they're about to take off. He didn't take off while we were live, so as we went across to Tristan, he then took off as we drove underneath, and this fell out. Now that's very normal, so don't worry that it's not losing its feathers just willy-nilly. It's very, very normal for them to lose feathers, even the primaries like this, during a molt. And what they'll normally do is molt the same feather on both wings so that they actually balanced. But look at the size of it. So this lappet-faced vulture, this is its primary feather, and one of the outermost primaries, and that's the ones that you see when the birds are actually soaring. It's the ones you see that look like fingers. But look at the size of that. It's just absolutely incredible. I can't get over the size of this. And then you can see the part that will actually go into the bird. I mean, look at that. That is pretty thick, isn't it? I mean, that's almost half the width of my finger. That is just crazy. Now I know this is a primary feather because we can actually see it's very uneven either side, and I was actually correct this morning. I got myself all muddled, so I was calling this a rachis and I was thinking no, it's not the rachis, but it actually is. So this is the rachis, the middle section, and then these are the veins, but you can see it's very uneven. So we've got the very thin leading edge, just like that as the plain wing, and then you've got the trailing edge, which is much longer. And if you've sat on a plane, which I'm sure many people across the world have done so, I'm usually behind. I'm usually this side of the wing. So you can see it is exactly the same shape as an aeroplane's wing. So you have the leading edge, which is quite steep, and that forces the air over the top, and then you've got the trailing part that, as I say, it takes quite a while for the air to flow over the top, and not as a long time to actually have the air flowing underneath. So it's that provides the lift, because there's a difference in the pressure above and below the wing, basically. So this goes over and the air underneath, and as I say, it can actually provide the lift. So if I actually demonstrate where these primaries are, so if I was a vulture, it would actually stick out like fingers, so I'd have a few of those, and this provides the thrust. So if I can sort of waft it to you. Hopefully you're picking up, just from one feather, the sound that is actually creating. So hopefully you're picking that up. So if you can imagine, the vultures are actually about 8 kilos in weight, the lappet face. So it's got to take quite a lot of thrust to get off the ground. So can you imagine having quite a number of these primaries to actually provide that lift? So when they're doing that, it's just lifting them off the ground. And then we have all the secondaries on this part of the arm or wing. And I think Paula and Willow are actually asking what the wingspan of a vulture actually is. So it's about 2.8 meters. So pretty impressive. I mean, I'm feeling like a vulture right now with this primary wing. But then we, as I say, we do have the secondaries which provide the lift. So once the bird gets into the sky with the primaries doing the thrust, then you have the secondaries on this section of the arm or wing to provide the lift. And they just soar. And the primaries will all be spread out, again, like little aeroplane wings, just to stop them from stalling, because that, if they don't have that, then it becomes a little bit turbulent, and I'm sure everyone's experienced turbulence in the aeroplane, and that just because you lose this difference in the wind flowing over the wing and under the wing, and that's what stalls, and they could actually drop out the sky. So they just adjust it and have the primaries out, and that keeps them from stalling. Same as in the aeroplanes, the pilots actually adjust the wing flaps and things like that just to regain that thrust. So yeah, pretty impressive anyway. So I am going to add this, James, to your little Aladdin's cave, so I hope you enjoy this. Yeah, just watch the bone behind you there. And yeah, we're going to see what else we've got in here, which I'm very, very excited about. As I say, we are live, so if you do have any questions, just like Paula sent through just now, then please do send them through, because it's always great to hear from you guys. And as I say, welcome to the Aladdin's cave. Absolutely amazing. I'm so excited. So I'm going to put this up here. So just for you, James, that is my contribution. So I'm hoping it's going to stay there and it doesn't sneak off in anybody's bags. So we're going to take a ride with Tristan now, and when we come back I'll tell you a bit more about the schools that I find in here.
Well, I'm sure Tara is going to have lots of fun in that tent. There's so many little things to look at, and I remember the first time I was in the tent, it was difficult to actually think about what you wanted to talk about, because there were so many cool things that we don't get to see that often on drive, that it was nice to actually be in there. And I'm sure Tara, with all of her wealth of knowledge, should be very interesting and very entertaining in the tent. So I'm looking forward to the next few hours with her there, and I'm glad that all of you get to see it. I'm a bit jealous actually that I can't watch and see all of the information that she's going to impart onto all of you. So it should be very cool to see. Now, we've got a bit sidetracked at Treehouse Dam. We were watching a few birds coming down and having a bath and just having a bit of a laugh at our hippo, who decided we are no good. There's no reason for him to see us at all, and has been hiding ever since we last saw you guys, so it has not helped at all. But we are now leaving Treehouse Dam and slowly making our way towards Twin Dams to see if there isn't any sign of any eddies or, well, anything that could potentially be drinking. And I was saying to Seb that the Mulawati is probably a really good place to spend a bit of time this afternoon, being that it's quite warm. I would imagine that the shady banks of the Mulawati are going to be a perfect place if you are an animal. It will be a nice place to kind of rest and take it easy, and also to be able to feed. So that's our plan, I reckon. And when it gets a bit cooler, then I'm going to try and see if I can't go and search in that area where Shadow and Cub was, and see if there isn't any sign of them around that side. So that's my plan for the afternoon. Hopefully it will be a successful one. Seb and I shall show you some spots that would certainly make my day. That'd be great, exactly. But it is a beautiful day. There must be a cold front coming, because it feels like we've just finished with winter and it's now going straight into summer. It's a beautiful temperature. I actually think it must be about 28, 29 degrees, somewhere around there. Maybe Chantal can give me an exact temperature for the afternoon, but I would imagine it would be in that area. There we go, 28 degrees and 82 Fahrenheit. You see, I should be a weatherman. I've missed my calling. I feel like a weatherman would be an interesting job. I feel like Oh, awesome. Look at that. There's a monitor lizard on the road. Well done, Seb. Well spotted. I wasn't even looking. But that's a rock monitor that we've got crossing the road. It's not a very big monitor lizard. He's rather small. You can see he froze in panic in the hope that I wouldn't come driving over him, but we've luckily spotted him in time. And he's going to make his way towards a tree where he'll go and hide out. These rock monitors love to be in dead trees and the holes in trees, and they camouflage so well when they get on there. But I don't know if you noticed, we normally see the Nile monitors, and they have those sharp pointy noses and are very yellow in color, whereas this guy was very grey and had a blunt nose. So that's super cool. I haven't seen one of these guys in a long time, and it just actually goes to show how warm it is today. If we're seeing monitor lizards, where did you go, buddy? There you are. Sebi's right here. Look how cool this is. Are you going to stay there for us? Hopefully he's going to stay there for us. I'm going to try not move too much, but he's just sitting in the grass. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So we can see the nostrils, the eyes, and even the ear holes on the face. And I was talking about that very blunted, rounded head, and you can see it clearly now in comparison to the water monitors. So, Soccer Shark, who's a new viewer, welcome Soccer Shark to the family and to the largest safari vehicle. And you want to know how big can one of these lizards get? Well, they can get close to 2 meters long. So 2 meters would be about 6 foot. Their tails get really, really big. You'll find that the tail is probably most of the body on those really large guys. And then they do have quite a big body as well. So can get absolutely massive. And for a lizard, that's very, very large. And unfortunately, they do camouflage very well too, so once they get into the grass, they disappear. But that's an exciting start to the day. Certainly very cool to see. Dear watcher, you're wondering if the rock monitor can get into the water and be similar to what the water monitor is. Yes, they'll be able to get into water and still be able to maneuver through water, but they just don't like it. It's not their preferred habitat. They prefer to be in places where there's solid ground underfoot, so they're much like some people. Some people don't really like the water much and will stay away from it, and others absolutely love it. So it's a bit similar to that. But if they have to, and they have, let's say in a time of flood or rain, and they've got to get through water, they most certainly will do that. They're not going to just, avoid it and try and go around a river. They will go over and through the rocks and all kinds of things if they have to. So they're not completely phobic of water. But they're a big problem for squirrels and birds and those kind of things. Like I say, they spend a lot more time in the trees, so they're far more arboreal than what we'll see with the water monitors. They'll find holes where they'll live, but then they'll also go and not scavenge, but hunt for food items. So they'll go look for eggs, and they'll look for birds, baby birds and baby squirrels, and feed off those. David, you're wondering if other animals mistake it for a snake. I don't know, David. It's an interesting one. You don't really hear the bird's alarm calling quite as much as what you would for a snake itself. But what you will find is that things like the snake eagles, fish eagles, martial eagle in particular, will actually go after these monitor lizards quite regularly. So maybe from a long way away they see that slinking motion and they do come down and have a go at it. But I'd imagine I'd like to give animals more credit than what we think, and that they're actually clever enough to know that it's something different than a snake, that it's got legs, but it will still get hunted quite effectively, and it will be treated with respect, because even though it doesn't have venom and it's not able to bites you, it's got a jaw that just clamps and it will stay on you, and it's really difficult to get them off. I remember training with somebody that got bitten by one, and we had to use pliers to actually open the jaw so that it could get it off this guy, which I didn't really feel sorry for him because he shouldn't have picked it up in the first place. But they have an incredible powerful jaw that's also full of bacteria, and it's not going to be a great bite to have. And on top of that, that very long tail that they will use to whip out and try and keep predators at bay. So even though they might not have the fangs, they're still a adversary to even predators, and you'll find the predators will try and sort of keep them at bay, or try and treat them with a bit of respect. Now, just checking Janet Jackson's hole quickly and to see if any sign of Janet Jackson, but again, nothing. And like I was saying yesterday, I think we're going to have to pretty much resign ourselves to the fact that Janet Jackson has found a new house on the hills somewhere, and we'll just have to keep looking and try and find a new one. But while we look, let's go back to Tara in the tent and see what she is busy playing with, and whether or not she's got anything under the microscope yet.
Totally. I have been having a look around what is here. So we've got quite a few skulls which are so interesting, so I'm going to be showing you a few, but we've got a few of the carnivore skulls here, we've got a few of the leg bones, femurs, things like that. This guy here, wonder if anybody can guess what that is, or maybe you know already. But yeah, if there's any new viewers, hashtag Safari Live or YouTube, what skull does this belong to? But it looks like we've got a buffalo up here, we've got a wildebeest, so there's some pretty amazing things in here. It's just absolutely wonderful. I just feel like I'm in an Aladdin's cave. But yeah, we've got a few tortoises down here, we've got a baboon skull down here, he's hiding down here. But yeah, absolutely amazing. I just don't know where to start. But I think what we're going to do, we're going to start with these two here. I've already picked them out because I did actually get asked a question a few days ago what the difference was between a cat and a dog. And mainly it's to do with the skull. So what I'm going to do is maybe grab these and we can have a look, because I was trying to explain it and unfortunately it's very difficult to explain. So if I grab them, then we'll be able to explain it a little bit more. But this one is the cat skull, and I believe this is a serval. Nice big eye sockets there, and this one I believe is a wild dog. So those are the two. You can see there's not too much sort of outwardly, it doesn't look like that much difference really, but what is really amazing me is how short the wild dog skull actually is. And yeah, apparently that is quite normal, so it does seem to be a wild dog skull, because I was wondering if it was right or not, but yeah, it looks like it could well be. But yeah, so let's grab these then. Doing here, so if we can get that working, because when we started talking about doing the tent, everyone started saying, oh yeah, we've got this and we've got that, so we're like, oh, why don't we try it? Because obviously Connor is the drone flyer as well, so he's out and about, so we've got a couple of things lined up. Hopefully we'll be able to cut to him as well, so maybe when we come back we can see if he's out and ready for us to come to him. So yeah, we would like to try and catch up with maybe the vultures at the carcass, which I didn't get a chance to do, and there's also been some monkeys calling just about 2.5 hours ago. They were going and they're really intent on the drainage line. Now, a lot of you have obviously heard us talking about the drainage line behind Final Control, and they were all looking in there, and we're wondering if maybe the little, oh, what's her name again? It's just popped out of my head. Karula's cub. It will come to me. Thank you very much. It was Shongili. That's funny. Just popped out of my head. But I'm wondering if she's actually around that drainage line, because Karula loved that drainage line. Most of her cubs would have been brought up in that drainage line, and I'm sure these latest two are no exception. So there was definitely something moving around. My money is on a leopard in there, so we're going to see if we can maybe put the drone out. It would be great to see that drainage line from the air, because as I say, we've always talked about it. The bush is very thick there, so we could never really get a vehicle in there, so that's really exciting as well. So I'm going to see if we can get this now. I have been having a little play, but this is going to be interesting to see if I can actually get it working. Oh, I want the other skull as well, so being very, very careful not to drop these, James. So yeah, so we've had a look at the eye socket. So the serval, it stands probably about that sort of height off the ground. So quite a tall cat, very slender legs, because it does usually go through the thick grass. And then the eye sockets for obviously detecting prey, but it's also got very large ears for detecting rodents running through the grass as well. So that is the serval. And I believe I is a wild dog with quite a short nose really for a canine. So that's really the first thing. The cats do have these very short stubby faces, whereas the dogs tend to have that long nose and muzzle. But the main things are actually underneath. So there's three things that differentiate cats and dogs now, apparently. So this is really exciting for me to actually have the two side by side. So this is the para-occipital process, which actually attaches muscles that help to open the jaw. And this attachment here is where it happens. So that's the dogs. Now that's not independent from this temporal borele or the auditory borele, whereas in the cats it is. Can you see there's actually a little ridge there? I'm just wondering if I can actually get the microscope out and see if we can see that a little bit closer. So I'm just going to shift that so I'm not going to pull the lead out too far, and just see if we can work that one out. So I think, there we go, let's go to the microscope and let's see. So there we go. So if I'm actually able to hold it steady, so this here, that ridge there, so that's the paraoccipital process. So I do need to come over a little bit. Ooh. Wow, this is like flying a drone. There we go. Okay, so we can temporalis borele here. So if we maybe want to bring the camera back in so you'll be able to see that again. So hopefully we'll be able to get a nice view of that. So yeah, so that ridge, so that's separate to the borele basically. Now inside the borele, the cats actually have a dividing wall, so it separates the front and the back parts internally. So that's separated by, it's called a septum basically. So that's just the dividing wall. And there we go. Yep. So unfortunately we can't see that, and the dogs don't have that dividing wall, so inside they don't have this what they call anterior and posterior chamber. And then the last thing, and I might, oh actually that does work nicely, so you can see this is the ear meatus here, and that's circular. There we go. And on the dogs, it's actually a tube, so I might need to use the, well, you might be able to see it if I turn it that way towards you. There we go. So it's actually a tube in the dogs. So those are the three main differences with the skulls between the cats and the dogs. So there you go. So hopefully you're not too sick with my little wobbly hand there. But yeah, so really interesting, really exciting. I'm so glad I could actually show it to you because it's so much easier to point them out on the skull rather than trying to describe it. So yeah, so let's see what Tristan has, and we'll see what else we can find in this Aladdin's cave to show you.
Well, Tara, I've got something that's been a point of contention between all of us, and we have been discussing it a few times this week as to the weight of the kudu horns. So these are what we were talking about, and we've had a few conversations, and I alluded to it earlier this morning, well I think yesterday afternoon, as to what I thought they weighed, but we have this discussion in camp now as to what kudu horns would weigh. Now I said to Tara this morning, because I forgot to ask her, are we talking about just the two horns, or the horns attached to the skull, because that's all going to affect the weight of them in the end. Either way, they are seriously impressive sets of horns. You can see that male in particular has beautiful horns, and they've out in that big V, and I love when kudus get quite widespread horns. Some will have narrow spread horns like the one in the middle. These are quite narrow and close together, but others get these very widespread ones, and those are my favorite. I always like when they go quite wide, and when they get really long it just looks so impressive. But they keep staring really close to where we are, and I've looked around, I can't see any sign of anything, and they're not alarm calling in any way, but maybe there's a couple francolins that are busy rooting about in the grass there that's keeping their attention, because they keep turning and looking towards our direction, well not our direction but a little bit north of us, and pushing their ears and kind of staring. So I wonder if there isn't just something walking around in there that's making a little bit of noise that they're picking up. But I can tell you one thing, is we've been sitting with these guys for the last 10 minutes, and it is so peaceful here. We've got these kudus that are just sitting under the shades of the tree. There's some birds chirping, And other than that, it's just quiet and still, and it really feels like a Sunday afternoon in the bush. It feels like all the other animals have decided to take it easy this afternoon too. Paula, you're wondering if the horns stop growing when they reach a certain length. Well, Paula, no they don't. They will continue to grow, but there is genetics that are involved, so that will limit some sizes of horns. Some will have bigger than others, and also you'll find that there's a nutrient aspect to it as well. So the more nutrients they get, typically the more the bone grows on the head, and the horns get bigger and stronger, and they're able to last. So those are two sides of it. And also, once it gets to the third turn, the rate of growth starts to slow down exponentially. You'll find in the first few turns the growth is quite quick, so the kudu goes from a tiny baby to sort of 2-3 years, and it's already got its first turn and approaching its second turn, and then after that it really starts to slow down. From about 5 years, the growth rate is very much slower. But they do continue to grow throughout. It's much like most animals' horns. They don't stop growing. There's constantly calcification of the skull, or of the bone on the skull, and that causes the extra length to develop. In the case of things like buffalo, it just makes the boss a lot larger, but with these guys you get a little bit of extra length as they go. Soccer shark, they will use their horns to clash with one another, and in fact kudu have a real big problem. Because of the shape of their horns, they often get into a situation where they get entangled and they cannot get out of it. So what happens with a kudu horn, and I'm sure hopefully Tara will be able to show you kudu horns in the tent and she'll be able to show you what I'm talking about, but they have this screw shape, and there's actually a little line that runs up the horn, almost like a ridge. And what happens is these horns go together, and that ridge almost locks into the horns of the other kudu, and they can't get them out for anything. And it then ends up that maybe one of them either breaks their neck, or they can't get untangled, and they then can't feed and drink, and they die like that, or predators find them and kill them. So it's a big problem with kudu. It happens quite regularly. I've seen a number of different carcasses where kudu's horns are attached like that. And in fact, when I was doing some walks in the Lubombo concession in the eastern side of Kruger, there was two skulls of kudus there where the horns are interlocked, and the guys were telling me that they'd been there for many years, and you could pull as hard as you wanted to, those horns would not come out. Even with us as people with dexterous hands and opposable thumbs to try and pry and wrench, we could not get those horns apart until such time as the keratin sheath, which is that dark sheath over the top of the bone, had rotted away and had been eaten by these horn-boring moths, that loosened up and the connective tissue disappeared, and that then it slipped off that sheath, and then the bones came apart. But it was really quite something to feel just how tight those horns had been pulled in their struggle to get free. It's almost as though once it gets entangled a little bit, the struggle to get themselves free causes them to actually pull tighter and tighter, and then unfortunately there gets a little bit of a problem. So they do use them to fight with one another. They won't really use them to protect themselves all that much from things like lions. Lions tend to be able to deal with it, but things like wild dog, hyena, I have seen kudus standing their ground and using those horns to try and impale those animals, particularly because there's quite a few of them and they often entangle them. There is an absolutely massive kudu that's on its way now. Hopefully it's going to come out just now. So it's just behind the thicket, and it's coming from our right hand side, moving towards this bull in picture, and hopefully will come out. Now, Vicky, you're wondering if the horns can break. Most definitely, as they fight with one another, those horns, there's a lot of pressure that's applied on them, and every now and then you will find a horn breaks, and sometimes you'll find kudu with one horn or 1.5 horns, and we see it with impalas as well when they fight. So it does happen from time to time. If the horn does break, you'll find a situation where it will not regrow, so you'll never get that whole horn coming back out again. Remember, it's not a cartilage like what we see in the northern hemisphere antelope. It is a bone structure, so once it breaks, that's the end of it. It's like, imagine cutting off your arm is not going to come back again, and just because you want it to, unfortunately. So that's a bit of a problem when it comes to having really big and beautiful horns. The lucky thing with kudus is that it's very seldom that they really go at each other. It's only if there's a female in heat and it's two evenly matched bulls will you find that situation. Now I want to try go forward a bit, because I want to try to see if we can't find this other kudu bull that should be coming. In fact, I can see him now. Seb, you see he's going to come out close to where those impalas were. So Seb showed you impalas just now. So that male impala is coming over, and then the kudu should be behind him shortly. And he looks as though he's a really impressive specimen. From far, he was dark grey in coloration, and generally the older bulls get that much darker appearance. You can see a bit of movement. There he comes, and look at the size of his horns. Look at that. Isn't that magnificent? That just oozes. Wow. That's an incredible specimen of a kudu. Now, hopefully he's going to just break that cover again and we'll get him in the beautiful light. Or is he going to just stick to the thicket? But you see how much darker he is than the others. I know he's in the shade, but he is a lot more grey in coloration than the others. Now, Kat, you're wondering if this horn size matters to the females. Now, Kat, the thing about the horn size is what come out there and is moving along, and you can see very similar spiraled horn and brown coloration with that white striping. They have a very similar look to them than what the kudu do, just slightly more hairy on the nyalas and a lot smaller. Now, Kat, I was saying, you were asking about the horns and whether they matter in terms of females. So, Kat, the thing about the horns is that it's going to impress other males more than anything else, which means they're going to be able to dominate other males and therefore be able to mate with females more often. So it's more that gets them into a stage where they can actually dominate other males and allows them to mate more than the females actually wanting to mate with them because their horns are bigger. Ideally, the females do see this larger animal, larger horns, and they know that he's more impressive. And if he can push out all the competition, then he's definitely an individual that they want to mate with. Now, I'm going to go around because these guys are heading straight towards Treehouse Dam for a drink, and I'm going to try to see if I can't get them drinking. And while we do that, let's go back to Tara, who I believe does have a set of spiraled horns that she can show you a little bit closer.
Yes, that was so impressive. Sure, I mean, that bull with the spread, that really was very impressive. We're definitely going to have a play with the kudu horns, and we'll see if we can try and guesstimate the weight there. But I believe Commander Conrad is ready and waiting with the drone, so I think we should definitely test that out and see if we can get some fantastic views. So, Connor, if you're ready, definitely make that pretty fly. So definitely excited to see that. So there we go. Oh, right above the carcass now. I was hoping we might see some vultures on that carcass. It looks like there's maybe one or two there. So yeah, it looks like there could be maybe one or two on the ground there. And oh, that looks like a hornbill just to the left of your screen. So that's all that's left. So that's all that's left of the buffalo carcass. I mean, that's 3 days. That is just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Ah, there is I forget we're so high. There is actually the vultures on the ground. Now, it's funny to see the bush from this height. It doesn't look that thick, but believe me, when you're driving through it in the vehicle, it does feel very thick. But that is absolutely stunning. That's spectacular view right across the Sabi Sands there. Now, the lions did actually drag the buffalo a little bit, so it was lying up to the left of your screen now, and they managed to drag it to the next bush. So yeah, you can see the track that we were coming in on and going around to the right. So most of the lionesses there was a little island actually that you see. The lionesses were all lying up there. Now, we were very privileged. We went out to take some of the staff last night to go and have a look at the lions, and the males started calling, and there was actually a male behind the termite mound that's just to the right of the screen now. He was calling from behind there, and it was really quite epic. So we were hoping maybe the boys were going to be around there, the Birmingham boys, but there you go. You can see the 2-track just to the left of the screen that we were using to come in. Hyena Road just in the distance. It just comes into view every so often. But it's amazing how dry the bush actually looks from up here. Sure. really is quite amazing. And you can see actually there's quite a few trees. You might be able to work out quite a few green trees where the river line or the riverbed is actually, again, that's just cutting across the top portion of the screen. So hopefully you can actually work out that quite dark line of trees. There's one or two green there because there's still a little bit of water underneath. So they're still able to stay green. But that really is quite amazing. Not too many vultures around in the trees. There's one or two. But this is just absolutely epic. Really fantastic views. We were really hoping that perhaps we were going to see some vultures in flight, but maybe they are still just around the carcass, maybe just feeding where we couldn't see them. But yeah, absolutely incredible, wasn't it? I mean, just to see it from that height, you really don't realise the scale when you're driving around, but to see it and just the expanse. I mean, it's quite low lying here. I think it's around 200 metres above sea level. Not too many mountains in this area, but when we get to a slightly higher point, you can actually look across to, I believe it's the Lubumba Mountains towards Mozambique way. So there's a few places you can see that, but really quite amazing. And I say it's you don't really realise how dry the bush is until you see it like that. Absolutely incredible. So let's have a look at these. These are not as impressive, I fear, as the ones we've just been seeing with Tristan, but they are pretty weighty. Now, as I say, we were kind of sort of debating on where we take the weight of the horns. Unfortunately, as I say, I think someone did feed me through some slightly wrong information, and to be honest, I totally forgot really what 20 or 30 kilos actually feels like, and I suddenly realised, that's actually a drum of petrol, or when I was actually working in with the captive animals, it would be 20-gram bags of food that we used to put on the shoulders, so it's still pretty weighty. So perhaps not really on the 30 kilo side. I think I got told 23 kilos, but perhaps we're still maybe not quite there with that. And there was a gentleman who then said that he worked for border control, and they've actually seized the keratin. So this is this part here, so the outer sheath. And actually, if I turn it round, then you can see the keratin actually coming away from the bone there. So there's the bone, and this is the keratin. So that's basically fingernail. That's all that is. It's the same substance, just very, very tough. And he said probably this is what a leopard, for some of the newer viewers. She was actually taking out an impala, and it was almost like it was right under the noses of the lions. Quite amazing. Look at this. This really is just so exciting. And again, it just looks so open there, but once you get down to the ground, it's actually not as open as what it seems. You can see one of the elephants actually doing that foot rocking. Not sure what to make of it. It's very typical behaviour there. And you can see them flapping the ears as they go, and that again is very typical. It's not aggression, it's just trying to keep cool. And as Tristan said, it's extremely hot at the moment. It feels like summer, it really does. It's really quite amazing how these temperatures are soaring at the moment, and yet this morning it was still fairly chilly. So it goes from one extreme to the other, and that's really one of the things the animals have to deal with, the extremes in temperature. And that would be quite an interesting study, using drone footage to see the pattern of movement of the elephants. That would be pretty amazing. Obviously there's a very nice tree, it's possibly an acacia. They're all feeding off of it. Absolutely amazing, isn't it? Sure. So, unfortunately, we are going to be saying goodbye to Connor. His last day is today. So these are going to be some of his last flights. So I'm really hoping we'll carry on finding some more animals for you as he flies the drone. And as I say, hopefully we'll be able to fly over that drainage line that we keep referring to behind me at FC. And as I say, I had some leopards come out of there. I was actually directing one day, and we actually had a little Shavinzi walking underneath the window, which was really quite incredible. Apparently Kruger herself has come to this tent. I believe somebody was just sitting outside, just chilling, and Kruger came up and checked them out as well. So yeah, really quite amazing. And we were going to be going to the Kudu horns. So just to show you, because I believe there was a young viewer who wanted to see what actually grows or lives on horns once the animals die. So if I turn this around for you, so you can see all this mess here. Now this is the excrement from the horn-boring moth, and you might be able to see some holes. So they've actually found their way into the horn. If I do you want me to turn it around, or can you see some of the holes? Yeah, see. Oh, there we go, on this side here. That's possibly easier. So the holes here. So some of the smaller holes, and then once the caterpillar goes in there, they'll actually be feeding on the keratin. Now, believe me, it's the strangest thing. I've actually been sat underneath a set of horns like this that were mounted on the wall, and you can actually hear these caterpillars eating the keratin. It's really quite a creepy sound. And then as they're eating it, the excrement comes out in these tubes. So that's what you're seeing there. Now, these moths, they're not able to actually burrow into living antelope horns, so don't worry, they won't be able to settle in there. And I think it's, if there's anything like that on those horns, the animals actually sort of either brush them off with the vegetation, or they actually sort of rub them on the ground, things like that. So they're not able to actually take hold until the animal's actually dead. They're really quite amazing, as I say. Maybe I can actually make the sound. I don't know if you want to try and put the microphone close, but it sounds like that. So hopefully that came through, but that's pretty much what it sounds like. Hi Shiva. Shiva wanting to know, can you age the kudu by judging by the colour of the horns and the height of the horns? And yes, you can to a certain degree. Certainly how many twists are on the horns. So it would actually be, the twist would be counted from here. So if you kind of have that in mind, the one twist would be to there. So that's coming back to where it's that one cork, if you like, part of this corkscrew. So then it does another twist up to here. So he's got two and a bit twists on the horns. Some of the very old kudu can get to 3 twists on the horns, and they are absolutely incredible. So they could maybe be getting up to what we believe maybe 15 kilos. But as I say, I think we'll have to try and weigh these. Maybe one day we'll find a set of horns that are fairly fresh, because obviously these are all dried out as well. So it'd be nice to actually try and weigh a set of horns so we can actually answer this question. I think Tristan actually mentioned the ridge in the horn as well, and this is the ridge here. You can see still there, or part of it, and on this side as well. So yeah, pretty amazing. And the older males actually have the slightly worn tips at the top. So they quite light in colour, and quite often you see the older males with those lighter parts of the horn. So I think Tristan's actually got something else for you. So I am going to have another rummage around and see what else I can find next time you come back to the tent.
I do indeed. We've just come towards the dam, and thanks to Connor, we now get to spend some time with some Ellies, which always makes me very happy. Yes, hello to you too. We're getting sniffed at the moment. We had a trunk out and was just saying hello quickly. So hello everybody, and our Ellie is being rather on the friendly side. There's quite a few of them actually here. I see there's another 3 up further closer towards where Connor is. I can actually see Connor. Connor's on the top up there, and so it's very cool to see, and I'm really glad that Connor is flying the drone. It's such an incredible view when you see these animals from the top. It just looks so different, and I'm sure Tara is loving seeing the images from the drone itself. She was saying to me she's super excited to see what it looks like from up there, so I'm sure she's really enjoying it. It really is quite something, and Connor's skill with the drone is always really good to see as well. Look how this Ellie is smelling. So the wind is blowing from the camp towards where this elephant is, and I'm pretty sure that elephant can pick up the scent of people around the camp. Look how it's lifting its trunk just to get a bit more of the scent on the wind and to work out exactly what's going on. Very cool. So from that elephant will know, okay, there's people somewhere here. Doesn't have to worry too much because they're not too close, and it can then just take it easy. The trunk will move around a little bit, and once it figures out exactly where things are, it will then move off and carry on with its day. Now it looks like a young male that we've got over there, and then there's a couple females around as well. And this is a completely different grouping than what we've been seeing over the last few days. They're not the same Ellies, so I would imagine these have come in from Buffelshoek. There was some elephants up in Buffelshoek this morning that might have come now south from Tamboti Dam area towards the dam itself. And typical elephant at this time of the afternoon is still feeding. I don't know if they've been to the water already. Maybe Connor will know if they came from the water side. It doesn't look like they're got water around their legs or on their ears. You'll find when it's warm like this, often what elephants will do is go down to a water source. They'll suck up big trunkfuls of water and they'll then spray it up against their ears. So as the ear opens out, they spray it on those veins behind the ears, and that cools the blood much faster than them actually having to flap, so they can save a bit of energy doing it. So when they've been to water on a day like this, you can often see it because of the spray that is on the back of that ear, and you can see where they've actually been drinking from. So it seems as though they haven't quite gotten to the water, or they were at the water earlier, much earlier, and they've now dried out a little bit. So also remember with elephant skin is that they do absorb water. So if they spray water on them, it doesn't just run off, they actually absorb it, and so it takes quite a long time for them to appear dry. If they've been near water, they'll often appear a lot darker than what they do now. But this elephant in front should be very easy to identify, not this one, except the one to the right at the back there. So you can see yesterday, or 2 days ago, we had a bull elephant with a massive U in his ear. Now this particular Ellie's got a really big V on the right ear, so that will be an easy way to ID it. And when it comes to Ellie's, yes, just sniffing us now as well. So when it comes to Ellie's and identifying them, this is how you do it, is you use ears predominantly and then tusk shapes, and that will be able to show you exactly what's going on with these guys. So that will be one for the future. If we ever see these guys again, we'll be able to ID it just from that V. Catherine, you say every day is Ellie Day to you. Well, Catherine, I agree. The Ellies are so spectacular. I always enjoy spending time with them, and we're so lucky to have had Ellies back in this area as much as we've had. I remember going 2 cycles without seeing any elephants. Now we've got Ellies, pretty much I've had them every day since I've been back, so I'm super happy that they're around and super glad to be seeing them. So I'm glad you are too, Catherine. I think Ellies have got to be one of my favorite animals to spend long periods of time with. And especially out in big open areas like this, you know, so seldom we get to see them in open sections. I know in the Mara they're seen a lot, and there's big grassy areas and they get to see this sort of big animal roaming through the grasslands, but here it's a little bit more dense and thick, and so we don't see it nearly as often. So I always enjoy these sightings near Quarantine and around the dam. Yes, hello. So you see the posturing that's going on? Typical of a young male that's trying to impose himself on us. What are you going to do? Leopard lover, you're wondering if the trunk of an elephant grows throughout its lifetime. Well, yes, it grows with its body. So you'll find that the Ellie's legs, its body, its head, everything grows, and so the trunk does as well. There we go. It's going down off towards the nest camp quickly before she goes over the boundary, which is really excellent news. So I'm going to try and get there and leave these Ellies to themselves and see if we can't get there quite quickly, because like I say, it is going to cross over, there is a likelihood, and we don't want to end up losing her. And we'll come back to the Ellies later if that's the case. But I just need to get hold of Tax. Yeah, Tax, I'm on my way there now. Just confirm Triple M's the best approach. And there's Connor, our drone pilot. So one cool cat with his drone, watching the elephants and thoroughly enjoying himself. Now, while I race quickly to get to Triple M for Shadow, let's go back to Tara in the tent, and we'll see you all in a little bit.
Hi everybody, and I'm waiting to see Tristan drive past. Actually, we should be able to see him driving past there. So I found a couple more skulls I'd like to show you and share a few things with you. So this is the hyena skull, and pretty impressive, I would say. So look at that. Look at those canine teeth. So if you're not sure what each tooth is, so these are the incisors. So they're your front teeth. So if you think of the flat front teeth that you have, that's those teeth, the incisors. Then we have the canines, and we also have canines. So they're the ones that have the very sharp point. And then we have the molars and the premolars. So the premolars are these ones, and then the molars are the grinding teeth right at the back. So if I open it up, we can see there's quite a large one here, and just opposite it on the upper jaw is the other one. So this is actually, you might have heard me talking about the carnassial shearing teeth. So that's the pair there, and when they actually when the jaw actually closes, they actually close very closely together. If I can actually line it up properly again, so I could jigsaw this thing. So yeah, if I can there we go. So if I actually get it to close properly, there we go. So you can see they come very close together. So it actually sharpens each tooth as it keeps on opening. I haven't got that right yet. Hold on. let me have a play. Hold on. There we go. That feels better. So yeah. So when it actually closes, there we go. That's better. Yeah. So when it actually closes, you can see they just close right on top of each other, and that action just yeah, let's see if I can try and move my hand. So that action there keeps them nice and sharp. So that's the upper premolar and the lower molar that you're seeing there. So look at that. So that's the side teeth that you're seeing them trying to shear the meat from the bone. Hi Vavia. Vavia asking if this is a model or a real skull, and this is actually a real skull. I believe these were donated by people, but I might be able to get confirmation on that. So yeah, so this is the hyena, as I say. Now, one of the main things that points to it being the hyena is this ridge at the back of the skull here. So this is the sagittal crest, and this is really the key piece of evidence of how strong these jaws actually are. Now, behind it, we've actually got a leopard skull just to compare it with. So you can see there's actually a lack of that sagittal crest. I can't get my word out. Sagittal crest. So yeah, you can see this ridge here, really quite large, and let's say this one's actually lacking it. So this is increasing the area where the bone, where the muscles are going to attach to, which gives them such a powerful bite. Now, for a hyena, it's actually thought they have about 1,500 psi, or pounds per square inch pressure. With the leopard, it's not as strong as that, around maybe the 300, 400 mark. So it's actually quite weak compared to the hyena, and yet they're roughly, I say that the hyena's a little bit larger than the leopard, but I mean, the skull-wise, they're roughly about the same size. So quite a difference, and as I say, it's because of the sagittal it's like the anemone all over again. I can't say that one either. Sagittal crest, and as I say, this area here, it's increased for that muscle to attach. Now, this is the zygomatic arch, so this is the cheekbone. So this is also very important for giving the muscle more area to actually attach to. And those animals that have a really strong chew have quite wide zygomatic arches. So again, if I actually hold it that way for you, you can see it's pretty wide. And obviously these animals need very strong jaws to be able to bite through bone, and that's why they have that. So the muscles that actually open the jaw, like that, are going to be going over the top of the zygomatic arch, and then the muscles that actually close the jaw actually go underneath. So really quite an impressive skull. So there is the leopard as well. Also quite impressive. Hi Shiva, asking how we identify male and female hyena skulls. And that one I actually don't know. I don't think there's much difference, to be honest. I might have to do a bit of digging, see if there is any way, but as I say, they do look very similar. Even the genitalia looks very similar, and that's because of the testosterone that's in their body. Now, because the females may have had to become very competitive against the males for food, it's possible the testosterone levels actually increase because of that. And they sometimes larger than the males, but if they find quite a large hyena skull, then that is possible that it is actually a female. But other than that, I don't think there is any way you can tell if it's male or female. And same goes with the leopard as well. I think with the zebra you could, because the canine teeth on the zebra males are larger than those of the females. But yeah, I'll have to do maybe a little bit of digging. But certainly check out the canines on the leopard. I mean, they're actually a lot larger than those of the hyena. They're pretty impressive, those. And I'm wondering actually if I can grab the hyena skull, we'll be able to see, not the hyena, the baboon. If I grab him, you can actually see how big those canine teeth are. So look at that, that's the baboon skull there. So they have canine teeth that are pretty much the same size, if not larger, than those of a lion. So baboons definitely also not an animal to be messed with. Look at that. that's quite scary, that view there. Looks maybe something from a horror film as well. But yeah. Now, what would be really interesting if we could get our hands on a cheetah skull, and you'd be able to see the differences with a cheetah. With the cheetah, the nasal opening is much larger, and the teeth are much smaller. So I'm thinking this one might have fallen off the shelf or something, because he's a little bit cracked, but if I actually sit him nicely, and there we go. So yeah, so they need a lot of airflow into their muscle, so obviously a lot of oxygen to keep those muscles nice and well oxygenated for running after the prey. So they've kind of given up some of the area that would be given over to the teeth. So they have slightly smaller teeth than the leopard and a larger nasal opening. So there we go. So hopefully some interesting things about the skulls that you maybe didn't know before. But we're going to head over to see how Tristan is doing with his search for the live thing with Shadow and hopefully her cub. Fingers crossed.
Well, it's not us that's done all the work. It's been Tax's managed to pull a rabbit out the hat somehow and find her in quite a dense, thick area. So I'm just trying to get in here quickly, and I'm going to position. I don't see any sign of the little one yet. It's just her on the mound, and there we go. So the belated birthday present that I owed Ali, not my Ali, as in Ali that guides with us and presents with us, but there's Ali, a viewer, who asked me very nicely to find Shadow on her birthday. There we go. Finally, we have managed to find her about 2 weeks later, and you can see she's resting really nicely in the shade of the mound. I wonder if the little one will come out maybe a little bit later, once all the cars have settled, that the little tracks will come, or the little cub will come and bound out towards Mom on the mound. But isn't that a sight for sore eyes? Long time since we've seen Shadow, and there's been so much activity of hers around this area that I'm surprised that we haven't actually seen her more often. We keep finding tracks for her, but now at least we get to spend some really quality time with our leopard. She's still looking ever so pretty. She's a little bit on the skinnier side now that I can see her stomach nicely, so it would be good for her to grab a meal. Hopefully she'll get something in the next few days or even tonight. There's lots and lots of prey animals. On our way to get here from where those elephants were, we had some kudu, we had steenbok, we had duiker, we had zebras. So there's lots of food, and impalas, lots of food items in this general vicinity. So I'm hoping that she's going to be able to find something this evening and at least fill that belly, and hopefully the big guy Tingana is not around that actually then steals it from her. As you can see, she's just watching what's going on. I'm sure she's going to fall asleep shortly. Once all the vehicles settle down a little bit, you're going to find that it's quite a warm afternoon still, and so being up on a mound like this, she's now gotten onto the side where the shade is, and she's going to be perfectly situated to have a really good afternoon nap. So there you go, you can see how shady it is on the side of the mound, so she's chosen very well. And from up there, she's also going to be able to see what's going on around here. If there are any signs of steenbok or duikers or impalas, she's going to be able to see them really nicely from here. But she's just watching the coming and goings of what's happening. So Tax is just trying to position himself better. It's a difficult area that we're in because of the amount of vegetation there is here. It's tough to get 3 vehicles kind of situated in one place, so we're just waiting for Tax just to sort out, and then I'm sure she's going to start getting a little bit more sleepy again. Deadhead Tom, you want to know how old her current cub is? Well, her current cub is just over 8 months old, so the first time we saw any sign of Shadow giving birth was around New Year's. We had a sighting of her on Simambili where she had a leopard, she had a impala carcass and she was feeding, and all of a sudden she got up and started running from the carcass, and she was heavy pregnant at that stage. She ran and she went towards a drainage line, and the guys found her the next morning and she was no longer pregnant. So we know that she gave birth around New Year's. It was I think it was the 1st or 2nd of January, and then that cub was born, or 2 cubs were born, and unfortunately one was lost. So it's now just over 8 months old, which means that it's getting to the age where the likelihood of it being more independent or being able to survive is better. So it's able to climb trees now, it's able to maneuver around, and that means that it's really going to have a much better chance of living. We know that with Shongile and Hosana, they were abandoned at 1 year old, or unfortunately orphaned, or whichever way you want to look at it, and they were able to survive. So that little cub is getting to that age now where the chances of survival are getting better and better as the days go on. So looking forward to seeing that cub more often and hopefully getting a lot more sightings of it. It's difficult because she spends a lot of time off our traverse. She spends time south of the boundary in Hofmans, which is very little traverse for many people at all, and so it's not seeing as many cars, and that's why it's still a little bit on the nervous side. So what I'm hoping is that Shadow is going to spend a lot more time here over the next few months, and we'll be able to actually then see the cub and spend a lot more time with the cub, and the cub will be able to relax around the vehicles. In fact, the last sighting I had with her and the cub was very special. The cub was super relaxed around us, and we had some great sightings. Toby, you want to know how big Shadow is? Well, I'm not sure if you're asking in terms of weight or in terms of just in relation to some of the other leopards that we see here, but Toby, in terms of relating to the other leopards that we see like Tundi and the varying others, she's a smaller female, which so is Tundi. They're very similar in size. Remember, they are sisters, so they're not the biggest females out here, but make no mistake, they still pack a serious punch. These 2 females, the 2 sisters, I've seen them both bring down very large animals, and they might be on the smaller side, but they make up for that with their attitude. They both are pretty good at keeping things at bay and bringing down quite large items. So even though she's a little on the smaller side, she's still definitely capable to hold her own. She obviously didn't like her dust too much. You can see her little tail twitched a little bit. Right, well, we're definitely going to spend probably the majority of our day with Shadow now that she's relaxing on the mound. And so while we sit and admire the view, let's go back to Tara in the tent and see what she's busy conjuring up in her lab.
Honestly, I feel like a kid in a candy shop. This is amazing. So we've actually got the drone. I thought it'd be really cool to actually show you the drone in flight. So we're ready and waiting to send it out over that notorious drainage line. So Connor, Commander Connor, whenever you're ready, show us that drainage line, because I am so excited to see it from the air. Here we go. Okay, perfect. So we've actually got the drainage line just to the right of the screen. And that's where, as I say, Kruger used to drop the cubs, and they would run around in there. And we actually had towels on the line. We had, there's the little pool that we were at just before, where we had some tracks. So there's the impala there, and then the drainage line is actually just below. So I'm just wondering if Connor's able just to turn the camera just underneath it almost, because that's where the drainage line is going to be. As I say, we had the leopards, the vervet monkeys actually calling to say there might have been a cat around there. But you can see the trees very green again because it's in a drainage line, so there's going to be lots or more water there. So there it is, look at that. So that's the drainage line there, that's where the leopards have been hanging out. So whenever we've said that leopards have stolen clothes from our clothesline, they went into that drainage line. It is beautiful, Abigail, but as I say, the bush is very thick there. And actually, from what I was saying about the bush being thick around by the carcass, you can see how closely packed those trees are. So that's really thick, and as I say, we just can't get vehicles in there. So whenever you think that the leopard might be in there, your heart sinks. But yeah, Kruger was notorious. She'd actually take off white sort of skirts and linen and things like that, and actually take it off and roll around in it. And I remember Mishun in Duna taking a towel off the line and actually throwing it up in the air, and according to the chef of Voyatella at the time, she said all she saw was the towel. Actually, she couldn't see the leopards at all, but they were throwing it up in the air and catching it and really having a ball with it. So that was the drainage line. But those impala look pretty relaxed at the moment. As I say, I'm keeping my ears peeled just in case there's any alarm calls, and if there is, then we're going to jump on Rusty and see if we can find anything. But they are looking pretty chill, but at least we know where they are. So if we do hear any impala calling, then we can head straight there as well. But really quite amazing. Let's say that drainage line, very, very appealing to leopards. So hopefully it gives you that glimpse. As I say, it's just always notorious, and I'm hoping maybe if Shungili is in there, she might actually pop out and let somebody know about it as well. So I think, oh yeah, we're still getting a little bit of the drone actually. I'm seeing on the other screen there. Oh yeah, we could see the camp. I'm hearing the drone just flying over us. So yes, so there's FC, and you can, so that's the buildings that are yellow on the right of your screen, and then we've got the garage with the green roof just to the left, and then we've actually got Voyatella Lodge and Galago. So Voyatella to the right and Galago just at the back. This really is quite amazing. But look at all that greenery around the lodge, those green trees, so that you can see where that drainage line goes. Now, unfortunately, we can't get the drone right down to the tree level. We have to keep above the tree level, otherwise the drone will get damaged. So that's why we can't go too low. But quite amazing. You can still see that little pan that we were having a look at the impala just to the left of the screen. So yeah, really quite amazing. And you might have just seen the mast just on the right of the screen as we cut there as well. So yeah, so exciting. I'm loving this drone. It's amazing. So I can hear it outside. They are, hey, take care. They're very, very cool drone shots. So I'm hoping Commander Connor's been enjoying his afternoon. So I thought, just to help some people out, because obviously I've been doing a lot of research. My doctorate was actually on leopard behaviour, ecology and conservation. And for those of you who didn't know, I have actually finished. I did become a doctor, which was really cool last year. So one of the things that we actually found during my research was this strawberry leopard, or erythristic leopard. So I thought it might be quite nice to actually show you what the whole genetics thing is about, because we've obviously got black leopards and black jaguars, white lions, white tigers, and as I say, now this strawberry or erythristic leopard. So we think they're all controlled by the same sort of thing, except for the jaguar actually. So a lot of people ask, where does the panther come into it? Well, the black leopard, black jaguar can be called panthers, so it's usually just a melanistic animal. So I've got some pictures to show you quickly. So we've got a black leopard here and a black jaguar on screen. So I thought if you could see them side by side. Now, they actually have just quite a high amount of melanin in their fur. So the leopard on the left, so that is the leopard. You can still see the rosettes because it's sat out in the sun, so you can still see the rosettes just coming through there, and the rosettes are quite small. So the leopard is found in Africa and Asia, but if we have a look at the animal on the right, that is a black jaguar. You can still see the rosettes, but the rosettes are much larger. I'm hoping that's coming out clearly for you. So yeah, they're much larger, and jaguar tend to have a spot in the middle of the rosette, which obviously you can't see as clearly on the black jaguar. So these are, you're seeing the rosettes because they're in the sunlight. When you see them in the shadow, then they will look completely black. So it's just a high level of melanin, that's black pigment in their fur. Now with the jaguar, it's believed it's a dominant gene that causes the black jaguar, but in the leopard it's actually a recessive gene. Now I'm just going to quickly show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to just use the whiteboard outside and just show you a quick genetics lesson. So don't switch off, some people don't enjoy genetics. But basically, if we just draw a square, a table, if I stand this side, that'll be easier, won't it? So if we say the yellow leopard, it has a dominant gene, so that's the S. So this is the male. So if I hopefully draw the symbol of a male, everyone will know that. That's the universal symbol for a male. So if this is the father, and he is a yellow cat, so he's yellow, normal coloured, so he might have this S. So if I draw a large S, that means it's a dominant gene, and a small s means it's recessive. So the dominant gets shown and the recessive doesn't. So if he's yellow, so this is what we call a carrier. So this is the dominant gene and this is the recessive gene. And males and females will carry 2 genes for each thing all the time. So this is the norm. So then if we have the female down here, and she's also yellow, and so